Hi, I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, which is always our chance to bring you guests from all over the world. But before we get to tonight's guests, we are joined by EWTN's Global Catholic Radio Network General Manager, Dave Vashrez, to sort of tune us in into what's been happening with EWTN Radio before we get started with the rest of our show. David, how you doing?
Doing well, Father.
Good,
how are you?
good. So tell us what's going on.
Well, great things continue to happen at EWTN Global Catholic Radio, thanks to great hosts like yourself. We just rolled out our 300th affiliate in the United States of America. We're very happy to announce.
That's a good thing. Good thing.
Put the first station on the air in late 1996 at Mother Angelica's invitation. Now here we are all these years later. 300th station goes on the air in Cleveland, Ohio, of all places,
market.
So not too far away from Mother's hometown. So
right.
We thank all the folks in Cleveland for putting that station on the air. 1260 a.m. So if you're in that area, please take a listen to The Rock, 1260 a.m. EWTN Radio's 300th affiliate in the U.S., 421 across the world. So we're thrilled with that growth.
And you got Jerry Usher coming back on?
Jerry Usher, a favorite for years on EWTN Radio, is the first host of Catholic Answers Live, is now coming back to EWTN Radio on a new program called Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And Debbie Georgianni joins Jerry in this. It launches June the 15th. Will be on Monday through Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. So
yeah, I talked to him on the radio this afternoon, and he's really excited about doing the show with her. She's really real dynamo, so
he's
that'll be
excellent.
Fun. Yeah, both of them. Yeah. Both of them. Real excellent. Yeah. What else you got going on?
Our annual Catholic Radio Conference happens October 21 through 23 this year, right here in Birmingham, Alabama. Anyone who's interested in starting a Catholic radio station, this is the place to be. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of workshops. We'll take you from A to Z on how to own and operate an EWTN radio station in your market. So if you don't have one, come see us. EWTN Radio at EWTN.com is the way to get to us. Let us know if you're listening to EWTN Radio, your testimonials, the fact that you'd like to come to the conference, anything you'd like to know about EWTN Radio. EWTN Radio at EWTN.com.
Cool. Yeah. And Fairbanks, what's going on up there?
You're going on in Fairbanks.
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to Alaska.
Well, I had the opportunity to go up myself to help launch a station there, and now they've said that they want someone with real talent to come and help them. And so you're
where are they going to get one?
Yeah.
They have to find somebody to do that.
So Jason Sagers is having you, and I hear taking you hunting.
Yeah, and be careful about talking about that because there's some people that are going to start betting for the Bears to win.
Anyway, we love that affiliate and glad that you're going to go out there to help them. So.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it. Dave, thank you for that update. We'll try to get some more updates as things go along. And we want you to stay tuned because we still have tonight's regular guests. That's going to be the Ladies of the Catholic View for Women. Try to get in as much air as you can because once they get going, there'll be no dead air around here. So stay with us. Thank you very much, and good evening again to all of you at EWTN Live. Before we get to our guest, I want to mention today is also the feast of the great St. Charles Lwanga. He was born in 1865 and got into the royal court. One king had invited the Christians to come, and many Anglicans came because there were a lot of British, and also many Catholics. But then when he died, his son, King Lwanga, took over. And he was someone who was actually a pedophile. And he wanted to abuse the boys, and he killed Christians who tried to protect the kids, including his prime minister. And that was also one of the reasons that he killed St. Charles, because he was protecting the kids from his advances, as well as professing his faith in Jesus Christ. So he was burned alive. All these young men were, both Catholics and Anglicans. And his last words to his executioner were, "It is as if you are pouring water on me. Please repent and become a Christian like me." And in fact, the executioner did become a Christian, and he also was martyred with them. All right, now we have some guests tonight. They are in their 6th season of producing timely and relatable programs that approach current issues from a Catholic perspective. Please welcome tonight's guests, Teresa Tomeo, Janet Morana, and Astrid Bennet Gutierrez. Ladies, how y'all doing?
Hello, Father.
Well, everything starts hopping around here a little extra when you three come up.
Got that right.
You got-
That's right. We're ready. We're ready.
From you doing radio early in the morning to TV shows going on through the day.
Yep.
It's great to have y'all here.
It's great to be here.
What are you tackling in this new season?
I think the question is, what aren't we?
What aren't we?
tackling in this season?
Well, we don't want to hear about what you're not going to do. We want to hear what you're going to do.
We're tackling a lot of issues. We're talking about really concentrating on understanding proper marriage prep, rebuilding your marriage. We're talking about the homosexual agenda. How do we stand up, for Christian faith, but at the same time be loving? We're talking about all kinds of different things. A lot of the topics that are in the news right now. We're also taking on some of the topics we really like to tackle are the radical feminists, because we used to be radical feminists, so we know how they think.
And still pretty radical.
Well, radical, but in a good way now, for the Lord.
For the Lord, exactly.
So we took on a very interesting survey. I'm sure you heard about this. It was called Benevolent Sexism, where the good guys are really the bad guys.
Yeah.
We had a field day with that one.
Yes.
Had a field day with that one. So that's just a few topics that we're touching on this season.
Here's one of the things that I find about a number of the folks in these various movements, that no matter what concession you make, no matter what accommodation you give, they are never happy because the issue is not the issue. The agitation is oftentimes the issue. Now, sometimes there are real issues, but frequently enough, it's agitation just to keep society moving in a bad direction.
Right.
Well, one of the ridiculous things, Father Mitch, was they compared like hostile, guys, catcalls and whistles, and then the benevolent sexists. Things like saying honey or dear, nice
Opening
words.
the door.
Opening the door.
That's a bad thing.
That's a bad thing now.
When a man
Opening
opens
the door
for a woman.
For a woman, helping. Oh, and treating them to dinner. Bad.
That's
Can't
the
do
thing
that.
for Bolton.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible.
We have a little clip of your discussion about the benevolent sexist.
this was a good one.
This is a good one.
Come on, let's take a look at that.
Now, let me give a little disclaimer here, because all of us are going to get our Italian up, our Spanish up, and our Irish up over this study that came out earlier this year that went viral and caused a big brouhaha in the world of our overly sexualized and overly radical feminist culture. So, did you know that there are no more Mr. Nice Guys, or that we shouldn't want to be involved with and potentially married to or date a Mr. Nice Guy? No, it's the mean guys, the ones that treat us like dirt, that are really the nice guys. Talk about stepping through the looking glass. Talk about living in a topsy-turvy world. Welcome to the world of the 21st century. This is nuts. There was actually a study, and this is what we're going to talk about, that was called Benevolent Sexist or Sexism. Basically what it says is that the guys who are treating you nicely, perhaps opening a door for you, being just generally polite, or perhaps your husband is a good husband and treats you with dignity and puts you on a pedestal because he loves you and adores you and wants to treat you like a daughter of the king, which is the way we're supposed to be treated. But oh no, don't be fooled. He's really a bad guy in disguise. Are you kidding me?
I know. It was absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, they had, if you saw the original article, there was these bullet points.
But this was done by a
one.
university on the East Coast, by the way, just to mention that.
And then, of course, they went over to the United Kingdom, of course, the pond there, and the Daily Mail is what did a big story on it, and that went even more viral. But they did this little chart of hostile sexist versus benevolent sexist. So the hostile guys, point one is they ban women from sports clubs, okay? And the benevolent sexists, they hold doors open
the
for women.
atrocity of it all. I'm
terrible.
so ashamed. How dare they hold a door open
First
for
of all,
us? Who do they think they are?
But first of all, holding doors open
I hold doors open
I
for
hold
people
doors
all the
open
time.
too. It's a kindness to do as a courtesy to a fellow human being. Oh no, let the door slam in their face. That's better. I mean, it's really. I mean, how does that make you? I don't get that one.
We're a little bit expressive.
A little,
Just
Yeah,
a little
well,
bit.
here's the thing. To take a variation on a game we played when I was about 4 years old, this is Simone says, Simone didn't say. You know, I mean, it just keeps changing as depending on what Simone says.
Right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
to lower the standards for women so that we don't expect more, you know, so that we don't see the treasure that we have, you know, in our dignity. It's really what it is, Father, just blurring those lines and getting us to not see the gift that the other person
I
is.
saw this going on when I was in graduate school, where the female students would literally be crying on my shoulder because the feminist professors were mean to them.
Right.
Because you have to, I don't think you can ever meet my standards because the standards keep changing. And these poor women are just trying to get through grad school. They were feminists too, but they were just heartbroken because no matter what you do, it can't be right. These are miserable people. You cannot make them happy.
But the problem is that all of us can sit here and we can have an educated discussion about it, but there are so many impressionable young women and young men. And you put a story like that out there and it goes viral and it goes all over the place, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere these days. And you have younger and younger women that are believing, truly believing, and the research is out there. Dr. Miriam Grossman has done a lot on this, that says that they really believe that in order to be loved, they think that love includes some sort of violence or domination, which is why the horrible books 50 Shades of Grey is so popular, because they really want a man to be strong, but it's so convoluted, it's so twisted, it's so upside down, they don't even know. But this is a direct, everyone says, oh, it's just a stupid study, but when you look at everything through the lenses of Scripture and the teachings of the church, you can see how this is a direct attack on God and how we're designed. Male and female are made to be complementary to each other. We're not supposed to be attacking each other. And what does this do? It pits male against female again.
But
so that's why it's
changes the
important.
rules of the game. That's why
Exactly, right.
Simone says. I'm assuming it's Simone de Beauvoir. But it's they keep changing it to keep the agitation.
That's right.
Yeah, and so the idea for this show really is to get people to think, to stop and think, and don't just toss these things aside, because this has been happening for years now, for decades, so they've been giving us this garbage, and that's how we've gotten to the point. We've been so desensitized. The lines are, it's not just about being gray anymore, it's just so over the top. It's insane, it's upside down. And so if we don't talk about it, if we don't talk about these issues from a Catholic perspective, where are you going to get that information?
And this is something that ends up blurring real issues of women being abandoned by irresponsible men from sexual relationships where they're left with a child and poverty.
Not to
And
mention
the injustice
sexually
of that.
transmitted diseases, which are epidemic, especially among women. Right?
And also that those are the situations in which women are the most seriously in danger of violence against them and their children. And that violence against women is not about opening a door for them. That teaches a guy to be respectful of women, and that you don't ever go hurting women, punching, hitting, and all. That's absolutely out. And this is something that, by creating war, the guys are just going to say, well, see ya.
Or they're just going to be so confused and not going to know which end is up, which
No,
I think is a
what
big
they'll
case
do
right now.
is they'll use women and make no commitment because they're afraid. That is the response of guys. I know from another perspective than you.
Yeah, and the men are called to be sacrificial. You know, they have a mission in their heart. You know, it's what God calls them to do. And chivalry, it's basically an example of that. You know, opening a door, letting a woman have a seat. It's just small indications of what men do, is that they give, they sacrifice. So we're just basically rejecting that, and that's awful. I mean, it's just detrimental.
But see, and it's not part of doing that is it's not just for the sake because we think, well, women are so weak. No, it's teaching a guy respect for women. And to give them a sense of the admiration and that they're not tools.
Well, we also did several shows on chastity, but we did one focusing on the guys. Let's hear it for the guys, basically. We had a testimony of a young man and how he is finding it hard too, finding a nice girl out there. And how, we always think of, when we think chastity, that the pressure seems to be on the girl to be chaste, live a chaste life, and until you find the right guy. But we were talking about how for the guys out there that want to live a chaste life, it's also very difficult because they get into these dating situations and they think they're dating a good Catholic girl, and they go out to dinner, and then somehow they're expecting something beyond dinner, and the difficult situations they have to deal with. So we also got the guy perspective on this. And
Yeah, it's I hear that a lot, that the guys feel pressured to engage in casual sexual relationships.
Right.
That they're not trying to go that direction.
Yeah.
But that's again, thank you, some of the feminists of the 60s.
Right. Well, of course, we also tackled, once again, the pill, But we did, listening to those viewer responses, of course, we always promote the NAPRO technology, and we talk about the damage the pill does. But, of course, there's over 500 doctors that have been trained by the Dr. Hilgers, of course, and the Paul VI Institute. But people were writing us and saying, but there's none of those doctors in my community. What do we do? So we had one of the NAPRO tech docs we interviewed, and we said to them, okay, give some things of how you can ask your doctor questions, like if they want to give your daughter the pill for heavy periods or irregular periods or acne, what do I say to my doctor? And it was wonderful because she gave very concrete things. Well, if they do this, ask. Take a sonogram. Are there any ovarian cysts? Do blood work. Look for. And she talked about all the different things. So we were telling the viewers on that episode, take out your notebooks now and take careful notes, because she was empowering them with the information they need to go into their regular OBGYN.
Yes.
So helping them engage, it's one thing, and we do talk about the issues, but helping them engage and giving them resources. And at the end of each program, we have a homework assignment, and we give them resources, we give them links to different church documents, we give them recommended books that are approved, of course, by EWTN Theology Department. Astrid had a great list of, it was 8 points for, I'm trying to remember, it was from the focus group, right?
Yes.
Right. On remaining
the
chaste
focus
before
blog,
marriage.
8 practical tips on how to be chaste, especially thinking about young couples that are going through a courtship or engagement, especially. How to prepare for a solid marriage. And a writer, Lisa Cotter, she writes for the Focus blog, gave 8 practical tips that she actually practiced during her engagement. Right. So just making it really practical, especially for parents, to understand these things so that they can empower their children as they discern their vocation, as they prepare for marriage, which is really important.
It truly is. What a lot of folks, I've been talking about some of this in my threshold programs, that if a couple is chaste during the courtship, you build a trust for the marriage.
That's right.
I know that you can wait now, and at times in marriage, you have to wait and abstain. Then you can do that because I trust you to be able to. You can't buy that trust.
One of the shows, Father, we had a beautiful couple, engaged couple. They actually went to Steubenville College. That's where they met. And we interviewed them, and they told their story of how they lived chastity through their engagement. And then we had pictures of the wedding. They were just married last weekend. Nice. So it's a beautiful story. And they told, and they spoke very honestly. They said, like, okay, we're trying to do this. Well, then there's certain things you don't do. Like, we don't go home, one of their apartments, and sit there on the couch with the lights down low and watch a movie. This is not something you should be doing, because you're putting yourself in date, and your occasion of sin.
Right. You're lowering defenses.
Right. Exactly. And so they talked about, and the guy was very honest, it's not easy, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And when you saw the picture of them on their wedding day, right, Astrid? I mean, I think you were at the wedding.
They
right?
were so darn cute. I wanted to take them home and make them macaroni. They were adorable. They were just adorable. They were, weren't they?
They were,
The
absolutely.
happiness they exuded.
And you looked at her, when he spoke during the interview, she looked at him adoringly, like,
she admired him.
Victor. And then when she spoke, he was like, oh, Jessica, just from their eyes, you could see.
Yeah.
So living this chastity during their courtship, it was working because the respect they showed for each other. It was so beautiful.
And where do we see that in our culture today? Where do we see those examples? And that's why it's so important to have EWTN, to be able to have that opportunity to show that, you know what, there are people that are doing this. It is humanly possible, and it's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Our society has a distaste for innocence. We don't want our young people to be innocent. and that things are introduced to grammar school children, and behaviors are now introduced, and that loss of innocence in adulthood, that there should be an innocence within adulthood too, innocence about sin. Right. And that innocence is considered naivete and dumb, and it's regularly attacked in the comedies. That's where you see that they go after innocence.
Don't you think, though, there is still, because God puts a desire on our heart, and we can never truly get away from that. I think this whole thing, and I don't know how many shows and discussions in depth on 50 Shades of Grey, the film, when it came out on Valentine's Day.
I know, I listened to your radio show.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this, and why are so many women attracted to this character, this sadomasochistic character? Because deep down, women desire men to be strong. They desire men to lead. But we don't even know what that means anymore, because we've walked away from God, we've walked away from the church. And so they're seeing this, and in their heart, they're desiring strength and leadership. But this is what the culture has given us. I mean, we have been swimming and around and digging in the garbage for so long, we don't even know what beauty and truth are anymore.
That's right.
But there's still that desire for it. And when people see, we get so many positive responses from this show, and when people see, wow, it's really possible. And even for those maybe who haven't been living chastely, you can recommit yourself to chastity. I mean, God's mercy is new every morning.
Exactly.
So just to give them the idea that this is possible and that God's plan is always the best plan.
Yeah.
Well, in finding a spouse, another beautiful guest we had was Jackie Francois Angel. And I know Teresa and I were commenting that she was praying that God, if I'm supposed to have a call to marriage, help me find the right spouse. And she did things like she prayed for so God to send her a spouse. She did a novena, and then the guy she thought she was dating on the feast of the Assumption was when she found out later. That was when her novena ended, and that's when he bought the engagement ring, and then he of course proposed to her 3 months later. But it was all these connections where she was very spiritual in looking for a spouse. And Teresa and I commented,
you might want to publish that novena. There's a bunch of folks trying to make that one.
54 days.
But we would comment in our generation, like we would never think of praying for our spouse.
No.
Please, Lord, help me if I'm meant to call to marriage. Send me a good guy. I mean, okay, single ladies out there, this is how you do it, okay? I mean, pray to God for this.
I know moms and dads who tell their little girls, pray for the boy you're going to marry.
Right.
He's probably already alive.
Right.
And so start praying for him. You don't know who he is, but God does. So pray for him. And these little girls pray for that he would be a good man, and that he be a good man as he grows up.
That's right.
And you give them a vision of something that's possible in the future. The dream that these little girls have, it's possible. And you're praying for this one person. And so in that way, it becomes a yes. It's not so much about saying no, no, no. It's about saying yes, but to a beautiful vision that God has for you in the future. And that gives you the strength and the grace to be able to make it. Yeah.
And the other thing too is, I'm sure y'all deal with this, how marriage is an improvement in life. That it has all sorts of effects on whether you're poor or not, whether your kids finish school.
Life expectancy?
Well, for women it takes you down a little bit. Men sort of reduce your life expectancy, I'm sorry. But you do raise ours. Married men live longer than
You're
single
happier,
guys.
You have less psychological problems.
Right.
That's another, right? Yeah.
Well, because a lot of wives were taking care of the husband, so therefore, of course, your stress is less.
It's all about the men. It's all about you.
It's all about you guys.
Yeah, right. No, that's not the way it works. But it's something where, the great thing of marriages is that, like you said, the complementarity. That by living together and appreciating, she is different than I am, and I don't know how he thinks like that. But the difference.
Well, I always say with my husband, Deacon Dominic and I, that God put us together just for a mere form of entertainment for himself, because we're so opposite. I mean, he's an introvert, I'm an extrovert. I know it's a shock, but I'm an extrovert, if you haven't figured that out yet. But we are completely different.
I want a reevaluation of the test.
but those opposites help us. Where I have the characteristics that he wants, and vice versa, so we balance each other out really nicely. So yeah.
And there's a beautiful episode about marriages, how to prepare marriages, and we highlight that beautiful new program called beloved.
by the Augustine Institute. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
We had talked to Ted Shree about that.
Yep, Dr. Shree, and of course Dr. Pia De Seleni, Jason Everett, Leah Darrow, I'm in
Yeah.
it, making spaghetti sauce.
Yeah, they have.
Cool.
We have a clip in the series of Teresa.
So where's the
making
sauce? Did you bring me some?
No, I made it a couple of months ago. I froze it. I'll bring you some next time.
But the idea was that, when they got married, Teresa had her family recipe and Dominic had his family recipe, and then they couldn't kind of agree on the sauce until they decided to take the best of both recipes and they made their own.
I did an
sauce.
analogy, spaghetti
See?
sauce and a good marriage.
That's right. See?
See? One of the things, too, that I do want to mention, y'all brought this statue. What
Isn't
is
she beautiful?
this statue?
Now it's the Madonna of the Kitchen, and she's available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. And when we first started the series, of course, we selected her as our patroness for the show. And when we first started the show, she was available in a resin kind of statue, but now it's a bronze type statue. So that's why we're kind of showing her off again.
She's with us on every show.
Every show, she's there. And of course, she has different symbols. So, for example, there's the broom there in her hand, which says that you keep a clean house, but also a clean heart and soul for purity in the home. And she's got the keys there, which are to give us the keys to the kingdom, but also to guard and keep the home safe with the keys.
And a
then
pot and a
kettle.
spoon.
Like the help to
See,
nourish
I think I need to
body
get
and
one of these because I'm not good at the clean part.
And of course, the kettle is there for the nourishment of body and soul. So it's a beautiful symbol. And to be honest, all three of us have them in our homes. And when I first brought her into my home and put her there in the kitchen, the first Thanksgiving, normally I'm the one banging the forks, saying, "Stop, forks down, everybody. We have to say grace." But the first time the Madonna was there, my son-in-law Mike, he was the one who corrected everyone. "We have to say grace. Mom cooked a great meal here. Come on, let's say grace." So she does have a great effect. And I tell you, I love giving it as a shower gift because it starts women off on the right foot. With
And the
having
other
that.
thing, too, is we're trying to instill or reinstill in people the idea of having religious objects in the
Right.
home because
Yes.
it's so important.
That's right.
And I always joke around about the Italian Catholic guilt because, in my family, we have advanced degrees in guilt. I'm Italian and Catholic, so my mother's got a PhD, I've got a master's. And so if you have some things around your house that remind you of your faith, especially the pictures with the eyes of the Lord following you, that's very, very good. If you have
Yeah.
that in front of your TV or computer, you're going to be very careful
And of
about what
course-
you watch and take in, right?
Mother Angelica always said, "Holy reminders."
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my dear friend Teresa has a brand new book out. Of course, we did part of one of our shows about this, Walk Softly and Carry a Great Bag, and this is available at the Religious
It's a devotional.
Catalog.
Right.
It's a beautiful devotional.
It can be
and-
for you, Father, too, if you carry a man bag.
Do you carry a man bag?
Like a
Father?
briefcase or a backpack. That's still a bag. No.
And of course, my book, Recall Abortion, is also available at the Religious Catalog. So that's the two authors here. And
Well, look-
that's the latest.
Well, that's a lot, and we got to take a break.
Okay.
But we
Okay.
are going to come back. We want to get your questions and your comments, so please stay with us. Thank you very much, and welcome back. First of all, I want to ask you to come and do what these nice folks have done from all over the country, which is to make a pilgrimage down here to EWTN. You can contact our pilgrimage department at 205-271-2966, or go to the website EWTN.com, and we will have, they'll give you information about place to stay, certainly the times for the masses, programs. You can be in the audience, and instruction on how to get up to hats full and good places to eat. Some good food down here.
That's right.
All right. You ready for some questions?
Sure.
Start off with the audience question first. Ma'am, where are you from?
Irondale, Alabama.
Yes, you are. Down the street from us. And what is your question, Sandy?
My question is, all these years I've been wondering, where are the men who have no rights when a woman wants to abort her child? Why aren't they fighting more? Calling the congressmen, calling the senators, and really getting out there and saying, we got rights to this little baby. And you really don't hear anything from the men. And it's
Ladies?
sad.
Yeah, well, I mean, there have been, men who have tried to do something about that, but basically because of Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton, that's what the law, the Supreme Court decision is saying they have no rights. And so therefore, they're basically getting silenced for, before they can even try to do something. I mean, we have very, very sad stories with the Silent No More Awareness campaign, men who regret their lost fatherhood. There's a double-sided coin there. There's the guys who told the girl, here's the check, go have your abortion, and I'm out of here.
And
but there was,
sometimes even force them.
Exactly. But there were so many men who didn't want her to have that abortion, begged her, please don't, we could raise this child together, and she could go off and have that abortion, and they can't say a word. It's very, very sad that, the rights of the guys are totally ignored.
And on the other hand, too, the courts have put a lot of men at disadvantage in terms of paternity responsibilities.
Oh, yes.
And there's one case of a man who became a father while he was drunk. He was made drunk by the woman. She had his child, and he didn't know what was going on because he shouldn't have gotten drunk. That was his responsibility. But then he had a paternity suit, and he lost. He lost, even though he was effectively the one sexually abused.
Right.
So, I mean, there are a lot of disadvantages that guys have on the legal playing field right now.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the reasons guys, they don't know what to do, and it's another reason they don't get married.
And you don't hear the stories that are coming out, for example, the extensive coverage that we give for the March for Life each year, and then we take the coverage up to the Supreme Court, and as Janet said, now there are men and women and more men that are speaking out and saying that they regret lost fatherhood, but because the March for Life is virtually non-existent in the secular media, we don't hear those stories, and we don't see those men who are crying out with these testimonies.
That's right. And we need to maybe get some of them on the show.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a priest on tomorrow who's now working with Priests for Life who has a post-abortive story, and he's going to be coming on my show regularly talking about the men in this movement and how the men are starting to get more active.
And I work with the Hispanic community, Father, through Hispanics for Life, doing outreach, and I meet a lot of Hispanic men. Many of them are still hurting from past abortions, and I've even met people who are uncles of aborted babies, grandfathers of aborted babies, and the healing hasn't happened. I think when it does happen, when they're invited to healing, and they'll stand up. But I think right now we're dealing with a lot of wounded people, but they're out there and they need to hear the message of hope.
And Rachel's Vineyard, it's a ministry of Priests for Life. More and more men are attending those retreat programs with the women together and healing together.
Yeah, see, that's one thing a lot of guys didn't even know they were welcome.
Yes.
That's right. But
Because they feel that, well, it's not just they feel, they are kept out of the loop of the
That's right.
decision making. I can't really go for a healing here because it's not, I wasn't allowed. No, you are allowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, matter of fact, if the men go to silentnomore.com, they can read stories of other men about their regret, and they can find also those healing resources of where there might be a retreat program right in their community.
Good. So we have a caller. Hello, John.
Yes, Father.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota.
Great. And your question?
Well, in recent days, we've seen a lot of top news stories about the transition of Bruce Jenner to Caitlyn Jenner, and not even talking about the transition itself, but don't you think that this has really objectified women and these photographs and all these things that you're seeing splashed all over? No one is really talking about, is that the right way to portray women, let alone the transition thing, but isn't this really a disservice to women?
Ladies, that would be your
Service
comment.
to human beings
human
in
beings
general,
in
but I think
general.
his point is well taken, because all of a sudden it's okay to have all this type of alteration to make you look a certain way. When there's been a big outcry, and Al Cresta actually has a great blog, and you can get it through AveMariaRadio.net, that he wrote about this. So now all of a sudden it's okay to have all this alteration, to fix your cheekbones and have breast augmentation. That's okay, because this is Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, finding herself. But there has been a huge outcry, and rightfully so, over the past 10, 15 years especially, for women who are forced to feel that they have to make themselves look a certain way, a certain size or whatever. So there's definitely a double standard, and I think John's right that it does impact the objectification of women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you look at the picture, first of all, it reminds me just the way the fashion models are too. It's photoshopped.
He does not look like
He
that.
doesn't look like that.
If you saw him on the Diane
Sawyer
interview,
special
right,
just 2
right.
months ago, first of all, his skin was dark and tan. It suddenly didn't get so pale like he looks in that Vanity Fair picture. And then just like, you know, he's 65 years old, all right?
Is he that old?
Yeah,
Yes.
65 years
And
old.
if
He's a
you
kid
look-
my age.
Listen, if you looked at his special with Diane Sawyer, he had, you know, the little lines here, and he had, you know, age lines here. The picture in Vanity Fair, it's like, he didn't have plastic surgery, Father Mitch, and recover in 60 days to have that face so perfect. It's been photoshopped.
And it's an
so
attempt
clear
to
and obvious.
normalize. It's an attempt to
It's to
normalize,
normalize it.
transgender,
Transgender.
transsexuals.
The
Right.
You know?
reason I'm laughing, I never would have noticed any of that.
Well, women notice
Women
these
notice
things.
that. We analyzed the picture for a long
I know,
time today.
We
in
sat
the
there
green
going,
room.
and then we said his hair, it was only this long when he was on Diane Sawyer. Okay, he had to get hair extensions to get it all the way down here and wavy and curly and all that. Come on.
But again,
This is, you know,
yeah.
this is one of the disadvantages
Right.
of not being married. But I hear this from my married friend that, you know, my married friends, the guys will say, it's a world of mystery when a woman goes into the bathroom.
But Father, just to, you know, you could address it, I guess, more theologically or whatever, but I mean, no one is worrying about his soul and him and
issues that
and the
he's
issues
having,
at heart here. I mean, my heart goes out to his family,
And
his
to him.
children.
And the issues
I mean,
that
the
he's maybe
confusion
struggling
of
with. Right.
our dad. I mean, there's so many issues here at stake, and I just feel like I truly feel through the years that he probably needed to have counseling and help, and wasn't getting the
Here's-
proper counseling.
Here's one of the other things, too, is that as one of the pioneers in gender change operations has been pointing out as he studies his patients over
Right.
time, I think it's about 50% commit suicide.
Right.
That is consider that.
have you heard that statistic once in any of the secular stories that have been out there?
I've only heard it.
Only in our circles. So we've been
And I
discussing
heard
it.
in one of the secular ones, one of the
One.
talk radio shows.
Right.
And that it's something like 70 times the rate of the rest of the population.
Even Renee Richards, remember Renee Richards? He is speaking out now, or she, and speaking out and saying that it was a big mistake and that it didn't solve the problems and didn't make him happy.
But because the idea that, you know, a change in certain aspects of your body would really change your gender is not true.
Right.
You know, that there's a lot more to being masculine and feminine than just a few organs that are visible and a change of hairstyle and makeup.
But this is all
That's-
such an attack on God because we're created in his image and likeness, male and female.
Yeah.
He created them. And this is why having discussions like this and having questions that John raised are so important. We have to talk about it. Because if we were looking at all the coverage today, when we were in between shows and we're looking at USA Today, we're looking at all these different headlines. Every time we got onto turned our phone on, there was another headline that was promoting it, embracing it. This is great, this is wonderful, so glad he's free. Nobody, as Janet said, is looking at could there possibly maybe be some issues here, some struggles that we should be addressing? The high suicide rate, the psychological issues. National Catholic Register did an excellent piece. They did an interview with a man who had a sex change when he was 42 and then went back to being a man and now has a whole ministry. He's an evangelical brother in the Lord. I'm going to have him on the show on Friday morning. But unless you're listening or watching us, reading the National Catholic Register, you're not going to hear these stories. And that's so sad to me. That people aren't getting at least the
Well,
other
it's-
side.
Because one of the tendencies of modern society is that there's more indoctrination than there is thinking.
This is the new phase of indoctrination.
And the youth
Yeah.
are the ones that are going to suffer in this confusion, definitely.
Let's take a question from our studio. And sir, where are you from?
Athens, Alabama, by way of Massachusetts.
Huh. It's a long trip, but go ahead.
What I want to know, I mean, I've experienced some relationships, and women have incredible power in a relationship, and I want to know why they don't, in our society, standing up to demand respect and demand to be treated with dignity, and why, when they don't, they just say no and leave.
Yeah, we bought the lies of the false feminism, you know, and that motherhood is a burden, you know, that we're not worthy, you know, that we have power in when we're immodest in sexuality. So I think we have everything backwards. And the more that we do that and we don't see ourselves with our dignity, the more we suffer. We don't expect more. And I heard a chastity speaker say that if a culture of ladies rises up, then a culture of gentlemen will follow, and we'll all be happier. But unfortunately, we're buying the lies of the culture.
Yeah, and to quote one of our interviews, we had Pam Stencil on about chastity and all that, and one of the lines she said was, well, ladies, you bait the hook, like how you're dressed, how you act, and that's the kind of guy you're going to attract. So if you're dressing modestly, then you're going to get a guy that's going to respect you. But if you're dressing where you're coming out of your clothes, well, who are you going to attract? You know?
Yeah. And this is something that is extremely important. Plus, I've noticed in counseling that a number of women are so fearful. If I lose this guy, I'll never get another guy.
That's right. Yeah.
And you know, and they're really afraid, and they still end up with serial relationships. And I'm not talking Captain Crunch. Let's go over to Mary. Hello, Mary.
Yes, Father Mitch.
Hi, where are you from?
Well, originally from Cleveland, Ohio. Now I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, beautiful area.
Yeah, I had a comment for you
Sure.
and the ladies. Well, they were right about if you pray to God, at 17, I prayed to God for a husband, because growing up with 6 brothers and no sisters, it was very difficult for me. And 5 years later, I had to wait, but he answered my prayer, and I was married to a wonderful husband, beautiful father figure. He's now gone. He died about 1.5 years ago. But we were blessed with 5 children. Well, they're all married now. They go from 35 to 45. And they all have beautiful spouses. I have 3 daughters, 2 sons. And I am so blessed that they love each other deeply. And I'm very blessed. I have 12 grandchildren. And I want to tell the ladies, and you, Father Mitch, I like you very much. I liked your homily today when I went to the Mass. But I hope to God that things get better in this world for my grandchildren, because I don't think they will be around. But I just want to thank you for your show. I'm enjoying listening to you right now, and the ladies. And I love your show, ladies, very much. And I watch it.
Yeah, and I think that she brings out what a great influence. She was talking a bit about her husband, but I have no doubt she equally gave, you know, because she and her husband loved each other, and they gave a good example, and their kids said that's where you're supposed to be.
That's right.
I think one of the reasons the other reason that we're doing this show is for the next generation, generations to come, because we've experienced it. We are different ages here, but Janet and I came from generation, I'm in my mid-50s, Janet had just turned 60, Astrid's in her 30s, so we come from different generations, but we need to make sure that we don't keep going down this path. And so we have to offer parents and grandparents alternatives. And there are ways to combat this. There are ways to engage the culture. We have to try. Too many people are just throwing up their hands and saying it's impossible, it's all dark. We can't buy into that. We have to remember that as long as we have Jesus, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I refuse to be silent. I mean, it's getting to the point now. I'm sure you saw the story about Senator Marco Rubio over the weekend talking about the fact that the catechism could soon be considered hate speech. That's not far-fetched at all. If you look what's happening across the border in Canada, there's already hate crimes. sometimes. And we have to stand up. We have to do it lovingly, but we have to give people courage to stand up. And people say, oh, you people on EWTN are so courageous. I'm like, well, we can't do it alone. We need all the people here. We need people out in the viewing audience to support us and to do what we're doing and to take our advice and to take these resources and to go out and evangelize. We have to. We cannot lose this culture.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind, I think it's, I've been doing a lot of study of how the Roman Empire collapsed internally, and the barbarians came from outside and attacked what was, in fact, a sand castle and destroyed it. What made the difference was the saints. The saints, Augustine, St. Patrick converting the Irish who became missionaries to the rest of Europe, St. Benedict starting the Benedictines, and then a Benedictine Pope, St. Gregory the Great. They were the ones who began the transformation of a collapsed and just vile Roman culture and a really vile barbarian culture and transformed it all into Christian Europe. And that, what you said, is key. They first focused on Jesus Christ. He was the center. He inspired everything they thought and did. And they were courageous in the face of the collapse and the invasions. And this is the way we must look upon it. So that like they converted the barbarians as well as the empire that was collapsing, we have to do the same with the barbarians that are terrorists and all the rest, as well as our corrupt society. Let's take a question from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
Louisiana.
Good to have you here. And your question?
Yes, Father. Any comments by you or the ladies on Catholic families following the church teachings and also have same-sex children? How we can welcome them into our homes, the church itself, and also what you think the Synod on the Family might say.
Ladies?
Well, I think one of the most beautiful ministries that's out there that's available to help parents and grandparents and families of people with same-sex attraction is Courage Ministry. They do a beautiful job. It was started by Father Harvey in New York, and it's grown, and they produced that beautiful video that we've shown at EWTN, and we did a number of programs. You've covered it, we've covered it, Life on the Rock, The Desire of the Everlasting Hills. We love the person, but just like, for example, if there were heterosexuals and they were not living chastely, we would say that's not correct either according to church teaching. So we love them, but ministries like Courage really provide great opportunity, great information, and they actually have groups for both parents. They have Encourage for parents and then Courage for brothers and sisters with same-sex attraction. And they have been very involved. We're having a big conference of Courage in the Archdiocese of Detroit this summer and leading into the World Meeting of Families to provide more information for families with children with same-sex attraction. So in terms of the Synod, from what my understanding is, and you can jump in on this, Father and ladies, is that much of the concentration is going to be on the family, on marriage, and a follow-up to what was discussed last year. The World Meeting of Families in September in Philadelphia, which the Pope will be attending and will be covering, is going to address this issue, but it's not going to be the main focus. EWTNnews.com did a great piece yesterday about the focus and what's going to be discussed. So I think there will be some discussion, but I think the important thing is, again, as we try to do in our program, is to remind people of the resources that are out there. And there are really good, solid resources to help families deal with this.
Yeah, I think, and certainly, we have a number of obligations. One, some people with same-sex attraction certainly find bullying, and they get harassment, and we have to be people who say, we won't tolerate that.
The Catechism says that. The Catechism is beautiful and says it's very clearly there to be respected. Every person is to be treated with respect and dignity.
And that we have to be folks that stand up for that without saying that therefore we approve of behavior that we can't approve. You can do both. And then also, I think in terms of welcoming in the family, oftentimes, this is an issue of, disrupted relationships within the family itself also needing some work, especially when you have sometimes very sensitive young boys who don't feel that their dad takes delight in them. That's when one psychologist put it to me. They don't believe that dad delights in who they are. And that's one of the loves that every boy needs his father's love, like he needs his mother's love. And same with girls need the love of both. And this is something that we also have to work on. It. We don't say, well, you've got this problem, we hate you. No, that just exacerbates the problem. Right. We love you, not your behavior, but we love you.
Well, you know, Father Mitch, we did the current season of our shows that's airing. We did 3 shows on this topic. We had wonderful guests. We had a woman who had a same-sex attraction for over 20 years, and she's talked about a conversion and how she converted and came back to Christ. And the other interviews we had was a gentleman who said that he still has that same-sex attraction, but lives a chaste life. So our viewers can get those that full series if they didn't get when the show aired. Religious Catalog is selling the full series. Sure. And also on our website, thecatholicviewforwomen.com, if they look up those shows, we have discussion questions and the resources Teresa mentioned, and the links and the website and all that. So they can really look to see how well we covered this. It was a 3-part show that we did.
Take another caller. Hello, Marilyn.
Hello,
Hi.
Mitch.
Where are you from?
I'm from Illinois.
Great. And your question?
Well, it's kind of a statement and maybe a warning.
Sure.
I was a child of the 70s, and I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. And I married a rock and roll drummer, but things didn't turn out. And after years of dating, we married, but the strength wasn't there because we didn't wait. And we didn't build up the relationship. And just like at that time, you got to remember, I was 13, he was 21. That sounds like a big shocker. But remember at that time, Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Jimmy Page, there were many others, had a young girl on their arm. And I was lucky we married. But unfortunately, you know, I didn't see things. I didn't see the alcoholism and other things that were in the background. And now I'm paying for it with a life without children and without a husband. So girls, go to college. Make sure you got a good job and find a good boy.
Marilyn, I
Bless you.
couldn't say it better.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you
Yes,
for sharing.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to say much. She said it.
But thank you for your honesty and sharing the pain and what she went. You can still feel the pain in her voice, but at least obviously it sounds like she has a relationship with God now.
Yes,
Yeah.
God bless
Yeah.
you. And Marilyn, one of the things too, when God is rebuilding our lives, He may take a little time.
Yeah.
And it may seem that we've got a lot of losses, but the more close we get to Him, the more He opens doors to new gains that you never dreamed
Right.
of. And that's where our trust in Jesus comes in.
He will give you tenfold what you lost.
Yeah.
He never, ever, ever does not come through on His promises.
Let's take a look. We have another caller. Joseph, you there?
Hello.
Hello, Joseph.
Yes. Father Pacwa?
Yes, where are you from?
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri.
Great. And your question?
Well, it's kind of a question statement, Father. The St. Louis did a statistic run from 1994 to 2014. And of course, the Archdiocese is diminishing on all its major sacraments, marriage, baptism, all that is going down, Father. And then here I read statistic-wise, and I take polls like Pew with a wink in the eye because they show children from 18 to 24, the question on contraceptive, they say yes. So when I'm listening to these 3 great, powerful women, to whom are they speaking, knowing that things are going downhill? I like what the one woman said, trust in the Lord. But, Father, it's really pretty hard, Father, for me to understand and put this into focus of what's going on and what we say on the media and the Catholic media.
All right.
So I'm not sure if I understand.
In other words, he said, look, we're sort of losing the battle, all right? And we're not really going, we see the number of people receiving the sacraments is going down because they're not coming to church and they're not experiencing the faith. And so is the church losing. And we only have about a minute here.
Well, what I can speak to is that I travel all over the country in addition to doing radio and TV, and we're all speakers. And I spoke in St. Louis. We had 1,200 women. I've spoken all over the country at women's conferences, and my husband and I spoke at the Des Moines Men's Conference. Every single Catholic conference is packed, is sold out. Are we losing battles? Yes, but we win the war in the end. And yes, it's dark out there, but we can't give up. I mean, I've read the Bible. I know how it ends. We win, yay, church. In the meantime, we have to work, and we have to work really hard. I refuse, as long as I have a mouth, and God's given me obviously a pretty big one, to be silent. And I have to be joined by others.
It's not just us, though. Each one has to reach one. And that gentleman should start working within his circle of influence and bring the truth.
Yeah, this is going to be key. Just remember, St. Augustine died with the barbarians about to invade it, to take over his city. St. Gregory the Great lived with barbarians having devastated his country his whole life. So it's not so bad. It really isn't. We just got to fight back. Ladies,
Thanks,
we have
Father.
to
Good
go,
to see
but
you,
thank
Father.
you. Look forward to your series. And may the Lord bless all of you and keep you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we can have these ladies not only on this program, but on their series only because of you. You make it possible with your generosity. And as we start the summer months, please ask you not to forget us, to keep us in between your gas bill, electric bill, and cable bill, because our bill collectors don't take a vacation. Thank you, and God bless you.